Ladies and gentlemen, my name, for now, is Dragon MJE. I wonder how many people are gonna get this reference. Anyway, so Genshin Impact's developers, specifically Crab and Aquaria, who are art and combat designers, they released a new video today on Genshin Impact's social media and primary YouTube channel, where they go over their vision for Nod-Krai, which is an upcoming expansion in Genshin Impact, along with a sub-region of the Greater Snezhnaya, which is the land of the Fatui and the Tsaritsa. Now, those of you mostly recognize Aquaria. He is a veteran developer in Genshin and has been there since its very inception back in the days of HoYoverse's. They had some interesting points and insights to share about the game's development, and I wanted to summarize the main takeaways of the topics they discussed relatively quickly. There are 3 to 4 topics they went over, and the first one was them acknowledging that Teyvat, over the course of Genshin's lifespan, has built up way too many storylines, and many of those storylines tend to be either hidden from the players or ones available in story quests and world quests but never get resolved. And they seek, through Nod-Krai and the upcoming year or so of development between version 6.0 to 6.8, at least this is what was implied, to tie in all of those loose ends and create a perfect artwork. They likened this whole process to the creation of an art piece where you have a canvas, but some parts of the canvas on the sides are unfinished, while the centerpiece, which is the main storyline, is the one that they were focusing on way too much. To kinda demonstrate what they mean to players, they go over some of the most popular lore pieces in Genshin Impact. These are ones that I have myself covered extensively in my lore videos before on this channel. Those are Before Sun and Moon. They show this one, which means I'm going to expect that everything they showed is going to be a hint that this is a story they plan to explore. So they show Before Sun and Moon, which is a book we get from Enkanomiya, of course, one of the biggest, used to be the biggest lore reveal in Genshin's history. Now it is easily surpassed by Finale of the Deep Galleries, the new artifact set found in the Great Volcano of Tolan, and they also show the Crimson Moon's Semblance, which is Arlecchino's weapon, the spear, which she transforms into a scythe. And this one has a bunch of really cool lore about not just the Crimson Moon dynasty itself, but also the astrologists and alchemists who used to serve during that era. And as a matter of fact, it seems like they are going to somewhat address the Crimson Moon's semblance in the next patch. For instance, if you guys saw my analysis of version 5.6's livestream, I did specifically harp on a part where Barbeleth talks in a way that not just mirrors but also invokes what we read in the Crimson Moon's semblance, with the astrologists peering into the inverted image of the sky, and then Barbeleth herself talking about how only by flipping the world upside down can you really see its true image, which implies some stuff about Teyvat's reality, I suppose, and how the world really functions. I do want to say, the way Barbeleth talks invokes massive Fuli energy. I don't mean she herself is a follower of Fuli the Remembrance, but inverting the world upside down in order to see its image, and how this is likened to like the process of looking through water or looking through glass, stuff like that. We heard this in Simulanka. This sounds very familiar in terms of the Path of the Remembrance. And speaking of the Path of the Remembrance, they also go over the description of the all-devouring narwhal, or the star-devouring narwhal, or even Ptahur, if you saw his name in the game files. This monster is another massive unresolved plot point at this point in time in Genshin Impact, and it seems like we are gonna get more information about this celestial beast. Once again, this is assuming they will explore everything they show within the video. And as we all know, the all-devouring narwhal is directly tied to Tartaglia. I recently made a video about the second Descender and how she inhabited Ajax the hero from back in the age of the Primordial One during the first civilization. Then she, or I suppose he, in this case Ajax, whose Voyager was inhabiting his body, met the first angel, and the first angel married Ajax the hero as her husband. Now, it's not confirmed that the star-eyed youth is Ajax, keep this in mind. He might not be. This might be another psych situation like they did with Xbalanque and the unnamed boy. However, the implication with Ajax is much stronger than that of Xbalanque and the crimson-eyed young boy. So it seems like Ajax the hero is supposed to be the star-eyed youth, the founder of Conria, or at least the ancestor of the Conrians in this situation. Since Skirk is coming out soon, I am expecting them to indeed go over this lore. We're gonna learn more about Tartaglia, hopefully, how his fate parallels that of the not Voyager, I suppose Ajax the hero, but also his relationship in this case with the Voyager through this paralleled fate, why Sortalogi is looking for the Voyager. This is a topic I will go over in my upcoming lore theory, actually, and also some lore on the all-devouring narwhal and where these celestial beasts come from and how Sortalogi got one. They also show us the Husk of Opulent Dreams, which is an artifact set that goes over some of Scaramouche's life, back when he was Kunikuzushi and then when he joined the Fatui, etc, etc. Now, Scaramouche is another very important character who has been kinda overlooked in terms of his main storyline. I know he shows up in events every now and then, but his main storyline, his main character story, has been kind of sidelined ever since he became the shadow of Nahida. However, this guy still has a bunch of different unresolved storylines with not just Dottore and the Fatui, but also his mom, Beelzebul. The first person to betray Scaramouche was his mother, who created him during a time when she herself, I don't know what the hell she was doing. Look, Raiden back in the days was really stupid. She made a Scaramouche, then threw him out because he was not compatible with the Gnosis. At least that was one of the reasons. But she felt bad and didn't want to destroy the puppet, which eventually gained sentience on his own, and his story goes on from there. In my opinion, Scaramouche needs to resolve his story with his mother. I don't care if they end up on bad terms, as long as the story is resolved in some way. Now, I expect Genshin Impact, given that HoYoverse, they tend to do happy endings. I expect if they explore this storyline that Scaramouche will meet Beelzebul and they will have like I don't know if I'm gonna say happy ever after, but at least a wholesome reunion. It will be probably very awkward. I'm imagining the situation right now in my head, and Raiden is not necessarily the best at words. She's probably gonna go to Scaramouche and say, I wanted to say this for many years, but never knew how, some bullshit like this. And then Scaramouche will stand with his stupid hat and be, do these anime grunts. It will be funny. But yeah, all things considered, the Wanderer, which is funny enough because he's also part of my Sortalogi, the upcoming Sortalogi theory. He's an important character, they need to resolve his story. And clearly, both Beelzebul and Wanderer, Scaramouche, are going to play major roles in the upcoming end of Tevat, I suppose, where we will have the Fatui involved, so Scaramouche will play a role, and then of course the Archons will be involved, that's a given since we have Celestia and the Abyss. I expect all of the Archons, or at least the ones who are currently alive, and then we have Nouvellette, they will get involved together. The second topic that the developers go over are the major factions in Nod-Krai. They specifically discuss the Voynich Guild, along with the Wild Hunt, and also the Frost Moon Scions, who worship the Frost Moon, and the developers go over how the power of the Moon Sisters and the Moon in general, and the Frost Moon Light, that the ancestors of the Frost Moon Scions from the era of the Golden City back during the time of Ajax the hero, and the Voyager and the First Angel, all of this stuff. The Light of the Frost Moon is a power that predates the 7 elements, which makes perfect sense, since the Primordial One created the 7 elements out of phlogiston, and phlogiston must have existed back during the time of Nibelung under the domain of Shikwotl, alongside the power of the 3 Moon Sisters, whatever that power ends up being. One interesting point is that the developers do confirm that the Frost Moon Scions are indeed based on Celtic folklore and history and people, which is really nice because I went over the Frost Moon Scions recently in one of my more casual videos where I simply gave my thoughts on their design and how cool it is. In my recent video about the Second Descender and how they changed the world, I discussed the story of the Voyager, which she is by far the most likely candidate for the Second Descender from all the characters we know. how she met the King of the Dragons, Nibelung, back during the era of the Light Realm, and then returned into Teyvat only to find that the dragon was gone, went amongst the humanity during the era of the Golden Realm. I then go over the Golden Realm, how the people of the Hyperborea are related to the first civilization of the Primordial One, the Greek Unified One, and then I discuss all of the Celtic ruins and how those ruins are related to the Greek ones we find in Enkanomiya and Fontaine, and now in Nod-Krai soon enough. Also, people pointed out that there are a bunch of them in Natlan, which is very, very interesting. And makes sense as well, makes perfect sense. My conclusion in that video was ultimately that the Celtic ruins and the Greek ruins belonged to the same civilization, the overall one. However, the difference is that the Greek ruins were those of humanity, while the Celtic ones were overseen by the angels who built them in order to safeguard the ley lines. Because in most of these, at least in most of the major areas where those ruins are found, the Celtic ones, whether this is on Tsurumi, where they worship the moon and the developers show this in the video and talk about it, or in Salvindignir, which also had an evidence of an angel, which means they most likely worshipped the moon, and they have a frost-bearing tree sapling. Around it you can see the husk or the remnants of a tree trunk's base. You can at least see the bark is still there and some of the skeletal structure of the tree. So it makes perfect sense that the Frost Moon Scions, who worship the Frost Moon and are descendants of the Golden City, the Golden Realm, would be Celtic in, I suppose, inspiration, since they draw ultimately from that era of the Primordial One, where we had the Greek unified civilization, and if my lore theory is correct, which it seems now far more likely to be correct than not, we had also the Celtic ruins that were overseen by the angels but had some humans in them, and the descendants of the Golden City, the worshippers of the Frost Moon, the Frost Moon Scions, might be one such people who followed those angels in from those ruins. I am looking forward to meeting them because they are going to be our first look into what those ancient people we have been seeing and hearing about in the story looked like back in the past. Of course, they won't be identical to those people since they are their descendants, and we shouldn't expect a 6,000-year-old lineage to maintain its absolute exact same type of traditions. There is no such thing that has happened in the history of humanity on Earth, and I say this absolutely. People will always change the stories over time, especially verbal ones. However, Genshin Impact is a video game, it's not real life, so we don't really need it to even mimic real life. The developers can take into account these limitations where stories change over time and cultures change over time as they either die out or mix with other ones or merge with other ones or form alliances historically, stuff like that. It's ultimately going to be up to what the writers and environmental designers and developers choose to do with them. But yeah, I am both very happy with this confirmation by the developers. It's really, really cool. I think I got lucky with the timing of this video, and I'm really proud of it. Now, moving on to the final point that they discussed, it was the overall environmental design of Genshin Impact. Crab and Aquaria said that Nod-Krai will be the most advanced location we have seen yet, which automatically implies that Snezhnaya will also be equally, if not even more advanced than Nod-Krai, because they're ultimately part of the same nation. I don't have a problem with this. I just hope that the HoYoverse have learned from their mistakes, and in the future they'll do a better job at setting a precedent for what their overall game storyline and environment will look like from the get-go. Because even Aquaria himself acknowledges that the start of Teyvat was far more medieval than what it is right now. Teyvat right now is more of this fantasy. It's kind of like BioShock. And I suppose also Divinity Original Sin, for those of you who have played that series. Extremely good series, by the way. Genshin is more in line with those games than it is with high fantasy stories like The Lord of the Rings and the Dark Souls series, for instance, and even Skyrim. And that's fine. I mean, Mondstadt is advanced in terms of alchemy, however, even that is not shown very much. We had one event with Lisa, and then outside of Lisa we have Albedo, but we don't really get to see his alchemical technology. Any of that, it's not there. While in Sumeru and in Fontaine and in Natlan, the technology is right in front of us. Now, I have my gripes with how Natlan uses its technology because the ancient dragons are way cooler than the playable characters. However, that's beside the point for this video. It's not really related to the main topic. Regardless, I am happy with the direction that Genshin is is going in. In terms of gameplay and environmental design, the Great Volcano of Talan is one of the best areas I've ever seen in any video game period. It's unbelievably good. So I think the developers have gotten an excellent hold on what gameplay should feel like in Natlan, since Ochka Natlan and the Great Volcano of Talan are extremely good areas to explore and play in. I think most people would agree with this. As long as they still enjoy playing Genshin Impact itself, they are going to like Talan and Ochka Natlan. Nod-Krai will probably be similar, if not even a step up, which is going to be nice. Also, they tease us with the statue of the Tsaritsa. Unfortunately, we never ultimately get to see what she looks like, which is a bummer, but I was not expecting them to do so either way. Regardless, thank you all for watching. That's gonna be it from me for now, and I will catch you in the next time. Take care.